Welcome everyone to the Nook. I'm your host Evan Tika with my co-host, the man who has now seen Blue Beetle, Noah Bailey. So, it's been a long time coming. I saw it opening weekend. He just saw it a couple days ago, but it's fine. We're now finally going to be reviewing Blue Beetle. Initial thoughts?
I liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those movies where a lot of movies, at least especially recently, where halfway through you feel the movie boring you, or
Right.
you feel like, oh wow, this is okay, this is the slow part that was expected. And this movie didn't really have one of those.
No.
It did a really good job of everything that was happening. A, for the most part, made sense,
Mm.
which with a movie like this seemed relatively rare, because this seems like the kind of movie where plot would just happen to the character.
Mm-hmm.
They did a good job of having things kind of more or less naturally work out. And also, all the characters were really good. The
Oh
most
yeah.
bland characters were still really well written.
Yes, the family was so fun. Was felt like an actual real group of people that would actually
Mm-hmm.
exist. Um,
Yes.
like just the actors had just so much chemistry together. Like they felt like a real family. It was
Yeah,
it
they
was
did.
it was good.
Yes, no. That was honestly, I think that was one of the strongest points for me. Like the family felt real, like the dynamic, and also just kind of you feel like you've seen these people before. This
Mm-hmm.
feels like a real thing. That they have the big family aspect, and they don't have a lot, but they stick together. And there's that one crazy uncle, and the smart mouth kid, and the other. So,
Mm-hmm.
the little sister had the most little sister energy I've ever seen, which
Oh
is
yeah.
yeah, that was well done, very
Mm-hmm.
much so.
And even Jaime and Jenny's relationship just felt very natural.
Yeah.
There was never a moment where it felt forced. They met and just naturally over the course of the movie just bonded, and it
Yeah.
felt really cool. Yeah, felt
Yeah,
good.
it felt fine because even from the beginning you could tell there was oh, she might like him, kind of thing. So it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense that obviously as they get to know each other over the course of very intense events, that oh yeah, that makes sense. It
Yeah,
wasn't a wait, when did they like each other? It was oh yeah, that makes sense.
because this doesn't happen as much anymore, but especially like late '90s, early 2000s, it was so often where there would be a male and female lead, and then yeah, they interact throughout the movie, but they never even you know come close to even kind of being romantic, and then at the very end they just kiss. It's like, oh, I
Yes.
guess that's what we're doing. Oh, actually, Brother Skywalker did that, so it actually is kind of more reason. like,
To be fair, that's far from the only sin for that movie,
yes,
but
yes, but it did. It didn't have it. It did do that.
that was probably the most recent example I can think of.
yeah, but um, but yeah, especially in this recent era of DC movies, just the fact that I had zero expectations for this movie. I love the character of Blue Beetle. I admittedly don't know that much about him. I mostly know him from Brave and the Bold and Young Justice, but I haven't read the comics. I know of Ted Kord. I know of some of his villains and stuff. I don't really know much about the character as a whole, so I didn't really know going in what to feel about it. I didn't know if the director was just someone they just picked to make a movie, or if he actually wanted to make a Blue Beetle movie. I was afraid it would have that just general DC stink that more recent DC movies have on it, because watching something like Shazam: Fury of the Gods, which I thought was fine, just the way it looked kind of off in certain areas. It just felt, I don't know, kind of bland, very, I don't know, it wasn't, there just wasn't a lot of stuff going on creatively with the actual visuals of that movie. So I was afraid this would just kind of be another one of those. No, this movie blew me away for how good it actually was.
This was a really good. This is one of those movies I definitely would watch again.
yes.
100%.
Oh yeah, and like I said briefly, beginning of the last podcast, like if you like Black Adam, it might be a weird comparison, but like I like Black Adam quite a bit. Again, another movie I had no expectations for, and it actually was better than I thought it would be. But I wouldn't necessarily call that movie great. It still had a lot of a lot of like the same issues that a lot of other superhero movies do have. But this movie is a big step above that. It's a very very like the action is overall very solid. Jaime is a very compelling main character. Like I said, all the side characters are very good. Yeah, any other general thoughts?
Yeah, no, I thought it was really good. First of all, the costume looked awesome.
It was
Like I know we
practical
already
too.
saw.
It was practical.
Yes, like it did the rare thing of like it looks really good, but it also like isn't just oh yeah, it's all like yeah. I don't know. It just works really well. It didn't look out of place for the movie. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't look like super like CGI over the top. It looked very legit
Mm-hmm.
and looked really good. And like it looked exactly like Blue Beetle looks in every other continuity. Like it
Oh
was
yeah,
pretty much exactly right as far as
yeah.
I could tell.
And I don't know why that's so hard to do. Like in the Flash, that costume looked weird. Like literally every single thing about the Flash costume looked weird. Like the mask just looked weird around the cheeks. I didn't like the texture on it. Just the lines, just the way it was shaped Ezra's body. It just looked off. It's like why couldn't they just make him look like from the comics? But this movie did that. This movie
Mm-hmm.
definitely was like we were gonna like a lot of shots were just like literally lifted straight out of comics or other stuff Blue Beetle's been in, like down to the different weapons that he made,
Mm-hmm.
like how the Blue Beetle suit talked to him, how he interacted with the suit. Just it was
Yeah, I
good.
mean, it was really cool. Yeah, I mean, and like you said, the weapon specifically, because like, especially like the whole staple gun thing or whatever,
Mm.
like that. I'm like, I've seen that so many times. I was like,
Oh yeah.
oh, they did the like. I was kind of surprised. Like the Sonic guns were good, but I was like, oh my gosh, he did the like staple gun thing. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
such a Blue Beetle thing. Because he's done that in Young Justice, Brave and the Bold. Like everything I've seen Blue Beetle in, he's done that before. So
Yes.
that was really cool to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that I mean, yeah, and again, all the characters had really good chemistry. The like bad guys didn't have like amazing motivations, but it was definitely believable
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, people are do just suck sometimes, so that is like
Yes.
that is how it goes.
Yes. And I think that's the main thing I absolutely adored about this movie. Outside of the characters, the fact that the stakes of this movie were very small. And I think more superhero movies specifically, should have stakes that are more personal and just
Mm-hmm.
like not world ending threat level, Like even something like Miss Marvel, I thought going in would be more of a street level, her little block of New York level of antagonist. They would be going after her family, her friends, her mosque, etc. But no, it ended up with these like eight, these weird creatures from another dimension that look just like humans. They don't really seem to have any special powers, but if they got their way, the entire dimension would cease to exist. That's too much. You don't need to
Yeah,
do all of that.
and it came out of nowhere and then is never mentioned again.
Uh huh. But with this movie, yes, if the main villain succeeded, she would have a robot army. But I never got the sense that if they don't succeed, she would take over the world,
No,
or the
she doesn't
world
care
would
about
explode, the universe would reset. Like that, nothing to that
no.
scale.
I mean, all she cares about is like the quarterly budget going up, the stock price going.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't like yes, she was willing to do terrible things to get what she wanted, but it wasn't by no means to destroy the planet.
Mm-hmm.
She's not doing all that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think more movies should to try to scale back what they're doing. Um, but
It helps.
yeah, um, yeah. Like I said, the action was just overall very very
Yes, it
good.
was.
Um, The
fight scenes felt legit. Like they felt real. Like it was real. They were
yeah,
really solid because like there was no moment where I was just like, okay, that looks kind of dumb. Like they all look cool. Like how he used the suit and like beat the crap out of all those guards and stuff. And I was
oh
just kind of
yeah.
like, yeah, that seems really solid. Like it did, at no point did it feel take me out of the movie at all.
Mm-hmm. There were exactly two major issues. One of them kind of minor issues I had with this movie. Everything
Okay.
else was either neutral or really impressed me. These two things I felt either took me out of it or like I would personally do something a little different. The first one, the petty one. So, you know how he makes like during the climax he makes that Buster Sword and does like the thing with it.
Yes.
I feel they easily could have had a thing where like when we're in Jaime's bedroom, there's like a cloud figure or a Final Fantasy poster or something showing that he is a
Something with the sword.
yeah, something showing that he is a fan of Final Fantasy. Specifically,
Mm-hmm.
Cloud and all that from Final
Right.
Fantasy VII. Because otherwise, like, I'm sure he is a fan. I'm sure it's not a stretch to assume that he likes at least
Yeah,
that aesthetic. But I don't know. I just feel it would have just been one. I could have missed it, but I'm sure I don't think I did. But
I
even
don't
if
think I
if
feel like I'm
if
missing.
it's not there, just a little something showing that before,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not a big deal. What I
No.
think is a bigger deal is throughout the whole movie, Jaime has to struggle with the suit actively trying to kill, and he has to like try to rail it back to the point where at the very very end he's about to kill that main henchman guy and the suit stops him from killing. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
completely synced. Now it's like you don't want to do this, you don't want to kill, that's not what we do. Yet the family murders an entire island of people. I know they're just nameless goons, but that seems incongruous with the main theme of the movie you're going for.
See, that's a good point because up until that point, it did seem kind of like it was more like just faceless destruction, and like I can't confirm or deny if anyone died. But then they like stepped on a guy, and it was like, okay, he's
Yeah,
definitely dead.
like
And then it kind of like once they got on the island, it did proceed to get like increasingly more violent because like even the like scientist guy who got completely mauled by the bad guy,
mm-hmm.
or like the other goons who get like crushed or whatever. And you're just kind of like, this guy like you feel like the last arc got a little extra rating in there because I was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, that seemed like it was like it was kind of funny like in a gruesome way, but it was still like that felt kind of
Right.
unnecessary.
Like I loved obviously I love in movies where an old grandma just gets to be cool. I loved that.
Revolution Grandma,
Yes.
yes. It was so random, and we're just not going to explain it.
Nope.
And I'm okay with
No.
that.
That's fine. And I loved the big Blue Beetle like robot just running in
Yes.
there blowing up stuff. Like all of that was cool to watch, but and then we have Jaime actively do non-lethal stuff at the same time. It's just why does he in the Kamen Rider suit not get to kill, but Grandma does? It's just a little I don't know.
I
It's a little
mean,
weird.
yeah, I mean, I agree. It is kind of like a where did he get this morality if that clearly wasn't them? And also, it's not like they lost anything he didn't lose. I mean, at first, I kind of felt like because it wasn't his choice,
Mm.
but then it's also like, well, maybe because I have the suit that gives me an extra, great power, great responsibility kind of thing. Versus as others are kind of just fighting for their lives on the equal playing field, I guess. But
Right.
then again,
Well,
you could say the same thing about the guy who also had the murder suit. So
and
is that
also
really?
George Lopez piloting a big robot beetle.
Yep.
That feels like you're a
Yep.
step above. Like you don't need to
I
literally step on
agreed.
people.
Agreed. But then again, you could argue maybe it was just hard to like drive, so he didn't mean to at first, but
Sure.
then he kind of just, well, I'm already doing it now. Now,
Yeah.
Grandma has no excuse.
No.
Grandma just likes to kill shoot people.
That's
But
whatever. That's fine.
to be fair, I mean that was pretty awesome how she did it.
Yeah, and I do appreciate the attention to detail where they could have picked any song during that sequence, but they specifically picked a song that was around the era that Ted Cord disappeared, which I thought was very clever.
Mm.
Um, so like, plus it just fit the moment very well. Like that's something that James Gunn has always. I know he didn't make the movie, but just generally he's very good at making like, Peter Quill disappeared in 1983, so we only use songs that are before 1983. Like that's cool.
Yeah, it's just good in universe stuff.
Yeah. Um, trying to think like it's it's weird. Like there are certain movies that I really really like that I don't really have a lot to say about, and I feel this is one of them. Like
Yeah.
I want to sing its praises more, but like talking with my roommate, like but even like an hour after we watched it, we both agreed we really liked it, and then we couldn't really say much more about it. Like, we liked it;
Well,
it was good.
I think one of the best things about it is that not necessarily what it did right, but what it didn't do wrong.
Mm,
Because it seems like one of those. It seems like it's a very straightforward movie.
right.
There's a character. He has conflict. He's thrown into a situation. Obviously, has to adapt from conflict. Goes through a great loss. Defeats an evil. Becomes the hero. Gets the girl, etc.
Mm,
We've seen that. That's every movie ever. So like, I think it just does a good job of doing it well, but doing it different enough that it doesn't feel played out,
right.
which is kind of just doing a good job. You know what I mean? It's like keep doing what you're doing kind of thing. Like there's
Right.
not really anything specific, but that doesn't mean it's doing anything wrong. So I think it's more of just doing all the little things right instead of doing the little things wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, and especially considering this movie only had about 100 million budget, the CG looks incredible
Yes.
for that budget, especially compared to something like again The Flash, which had a nearly 300 million budget. Some of the worst CG I've ever seen with some of the Supergirl stuff and the Chromodome. Just there's a lot of stuff in the movie that actively looks bad on purpose. Apparently,
On
according to
purpose.
the director, he was like, "I simply sounded that way because that's how Flash sees things as he's going that fast." Which, no, I don't think that's how that should work. But also, the audience needs to like that doesn't look good to watch in a movie. But whatever. but but like but as far as this movie, yeah, the CG looked really good. I really liked the design of the red beetle. I don't remember his name. Um, and yeah, for a smaller budget with very little like advertising budget movie, it delivered in everything that it could have and more. So yeah, I highly highly recommend it. Even if you don't know who the character is, even if you're not even like a huge DC fan,
You don't really need to.
yeah, like there's not much really connecting it to other DC stuff outside of a couple of references like LexCorp, and they mentioned Batman, Superman,
Yeah, but
and
it's like you can just base those off of just the notoriety of the characters anyway. It's like you
right,
don't need you don't need to know who any of the Cord people are. Like
yeah,
you don't need.
yeah. Any references to Ted Cord and other people like that, they'll you can get it
Yeah.
from the movie. Yeah, which again I think is also an issue, kind of an issue that the MCU's been running into recently. You have to do a lot of reading. You have to do a lot of
Do the reading.
yeah. You have to the movies, because they're 40 projects in. They already assume
Yeah.
you've seen everything, so they can just throw crap in and be like,
Yeah.
this from this other thing. Just go with it, which I have because I've seen everything. But most people who are just just jumping in for the first time into some
Yeah.
random movie, they might
See,
not
that's
know everything.
well, that's the thing. It's like, do you like? Is that fair to rag on them that they don't make it like every movie's like a starting point? Because like you don't get an end game if you do that anyway.
No,
So
no,
like,
it's not. I mean, that's just how comics work. So I'm not saying
mhm.
it's like, I don't really know how they would remedy it, but I could see someone complaining about that, and I wouldn't have a good counter for it. But because Blue Beetle is this one movie in its own little pocket, it might be connected to James Gunn's future, it might not be. It's just standalone DC thing. It can make references, but anything that like is important, it'll tell you if it's important.
Yeah,
You know, it
and I think
helps.
they
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, oh, God, God.
So it helps to know, the LexCorp building is important, but as far as the movie is concerned, we're not really going to go there. So
No,
it's just a reference.
yeah, it does a good job of kind of just having everything far enough in the background that you, if you wanted to, not saying that he would, if James Gunn wanted to, he could just add it on,
Yeah,
and nothing would really change. But
yeah.
it's like, I mean, it's not really, and I think that's how it should be for the most part in terms of like starting out. But yeah, as you get further and further in, yeah, it's going to be hard to just barely mention things.
And there's actually a couple of pretty obscure references in this movie to other DC characters. Like in the after credit scene, when it's doing like pan around of Ted Kord's lair, there's a box of Oreos that's that's been opened, and apparently, according to the director, that is a direct reference to the fact that Martian Manhunter really likes Oreos.
That is true. That is true. I do know, like, canonically, Marsh Manhunter is obsessed with
Yeah, like
Oreos.
there's a comic book panel of him sitting on a throne of Oreos, or like the in-universe Oreo adjacent product. Like,
Yes.
and like that is, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that
It
will
means
mean anything.
literally nothing.
But it's cool that like clearly this guy knows his DC stuff. Just be like, we're just gonna
Yeah.
throw this in there, and they'll say it's a reference. But if it doesn't, if not to anything, Ted Kord ate some Oreos 20 years ago. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, that's my thing. It's like, is it really a reference if it's kind of just thrown in and doesn't actually mean anything? Or is it just it can be whatever you want it to be? Maybe somebody was just hungry on set and didn't hide it. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? But,
Right.
like, it's, but that's cool. Yeah, but there was a lot of cool stuff in there. I did really like how, like, yeah, it just seemed really like how they just went into it. Like, yeah, they had the original costumes and stuff like that.
Oh
Where
yeah.
like it looked really good. It didn't look too over the top. It was pretty basic, but still like still tell they can put serious effort into it,
Hmm.
which is really important.
Yeah, and I I saw some really insane stuff on Twitter regarding how well this movie was doing. I legit because this movie it was never gonna make hundreds of millions of dollars. It's only made about 100 million now. It hasn't been released in like China and Japan and other places, so like it could make more, but it's probably gonna cap no more than 200. I've seen some people legitimately try to say that if they made a period piece Ted Kord movie set in the 70s, it would make more than this movie did. And I say, no, it would not.
I don't really agree with that for a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
One, I mean, again, regardless of whether it's Jaime Reyes or Ted Cord or whoever, Blue Beetle is not a name brand character.
No.
like we know, but like the majority of people do not know who Blue Beetle is.
Correct. And the people that do know Blue Beetle, as far as like the Blue Beetle that has the most wide reach right now, the one that was in Injustice, the one that was in, you
Pretty
know,
much everything.
like yeah, in Young Justice, in Brave and the Bold, in like anything in that Justice League
Animated movies,
action, yeah,
yeah.
animated thing is Jaime Reyes with the actual suit on because Ted Kord didn't have the suit, so he's not even
Right.
really Blue Beetle. I mean, he is,
Right.
but it's just a name. It's not like it's not
He
the
doesn't have,
Scarab.
yeah, right.
And if you don't have the Scarab, then you're just Blue Batman because all he really has is a bunch of gadgets.
Yeah.
Which I know they could make him different, but it would still there wouldn't be really that much unique about Ted Kord specifically.
Right. He doesn't have any powers or anything either, so it's
Yeah,
not like it really.
yeah, and you can introduce Ted Kord later. Clearly, he's somewhere, either lost in
He's
time or
alive,
somewhere.
apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's going to be a Booster Gold series, I think, coming in the future, so he could show up in that.
That'd be pretty cool.
Booster Gold like finds him lost in the time stream somewhere. Like they're buddies in the comics, so sure. Um, but there is no shot that a Blue Beetle movie starring Ted Kord would make nearly as much money as this movie really isn't making anyway. Like, there's no way that would happen. just because
No.
comic nerds insist that he's a better character, which I don't think he is. I don't. No. Yeah. Plus, you would lose that very relatable family dynamic with with like
Yes.
that, and just the general social issues that this specific family goes through that you can't tell with Ted. So just yeah, thought this was a better move personally.
Yeah, I think this was the best you could do. Again, I don't think there was a world where this movie, like you said, doesn't crush per se, but I think it was a really well done movie for what they had.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, there's more. I mean, there's always potentially more, but it's still it's still really good for what we had, and I
Yeah,
think they can build off of this definitely.
and I think if it had released before the Flash, or way later, like if it released in like October or somewhere that's well out of the summer block, because this summer was packed. Like Oppenheimer and Barbie are still killing it at the box office. There's nothing really in August, but that didn't really care. That didn't really matter because there's a bunch of movies in July that just continue just to sweep the box office. So I feel like if it had been delayed a couple of months, it maybe would do better. I'm not sure. I know October right now is relatively free now that Craven's been delayed. So I'm not sure if it would have been wise to do that, but regardless, I'm hoping that the amount of money it's making, I'm hoping that DC is satisfied with that. Considering it actually was originally going to be an HBO Max, you streaming only movie, and then they
Mhm.
decided to kind of late in development to make it, a bigger production. So considering it would have made $0, I think this is the right move. Yeah,
Yeah, agreed.
yeah. Um, yeah. Anything else you want to say about it?
Um, Not really. I mean, to be honest, it was just really solid, and yeah, I think that they definitely could add on to this potentially. I don't think they will, just because of the state of DC, but
Mm-hmm.
this was not the problem. I feel like this is kind of how Batgirl maybe could have kind of doing, got maybe not the same because that's more directly connected to a character they're just not going to use. But
Mm-hmm.
Blue Beetle on its own did a really good job, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes. If you haven't seen it, I highly, highly recommend supporting this movie. Or when it comes to you know digital streaming, whatever, like watch this movie somehow. It is definitely worth your time. Even if you're like, oh, I'm done with superhero, I'm done with DC movies after the Flash killed my hype for anything. Stop that. That's nonsense. Watch Blue Beetle. Wonder Woman does not show up in this movie. I'll say that much. So that's
Hey, it's first time,
first time in a
first
while.
time for everything.
Yeah. So, yeah. Moving over to another movie that actually I was late to this time. That is also pretty good. Um, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves came out way earlier in the year, and I just completely missed it in theaters. I wish I hadn't because it's now on Prime, and I watched it, and boy, is that a fun movie.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Like, it's so. Yeah, no, go. Please tell.
Yeah,
Tell. You
yeah.
tell.
Like I have never played Dungeons and Dragons. It's one of those things where like I know a lot of people both in person and online who do play it. I know a pretty good amount about how the world, how the game and stuff works. My roommate plays it, but I'd never really interacted with it personally. But my roommate had played it, and so he was like, "Hey, this is on Prime now. Can we watch it?" I said, "Sure." It looked fun, and even just as a movie, it is very fun. It is.
Yes.
The characters are all fantastic. Like the it's one of those movies where if you just saw the trailers, you would think it's just a generic action Marvel-esque stupid dumb action sloppy movie because the trailers were nothing but weird quips and just like oh, here's a reference to that to to Dungeons and Dragons, but like it didn't really seem like the trailers were making it seem like anything was actually going to be meaningful. It just looked like, oh, this movie's just gonna be nothing but jokes and you know and like
One-liners and
yeah and like
cheesy quotes and yeah.
yeah and like I remember specifically people complaining about the movie the trailers like, oh, it's another one of those SJW movies that just demeans men and like girl empowerment and stuff. Like, just because there is a woman in your movie that is cool doesn't mean that's what that is. Anyway, because like her being, I don't remember any character names. Don't even. No. Like,
I'm about to say I know I know the real actors' names.
yeah,
I don't
Gina
know any of
Rodriguez,
the
I think that's
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Michelle Rodriguez, yeah.
yeah. Like, sorry, yeah, Michelle. Her like being a barbarian warrior, whatever she was, like just watching her fight,
By herself.
tens of dudes by herself was awesome.
Yeah.
And like that again, that kind of stuff happens in Dungeons and Dragons. Like get into a room of 10 people and you roll pretty high and like, oh yeah, you can just kill them all, sure, why not? But sometimes like my roommate was like, when they're about to be beheaded and like she starts fighting those guards, but Chris Pine is like trying to get out of his binds. My roommate was like, I've literally been in a similar situation where like there's something seems super easy to do, but you keep rolling twos and ones, you just can't leave it. Like even like with assistance, you just can't do it. She's like, you finally get free, and all the event's over. Okay, whatever.
Right? You're like, oh, what? Oh, you missed that one. Sorry.
Have you ever actually played D&D?
I have not, but I like kind of like you. I had a lot of friends, especially in college, and like even now, still play a lot, like religiously, like every week. So I know a good bit of it. I've never played myself. It's just not my thing personally. But
right. But yeah, like even though neither of us have actually played, it was still a very fun action adventure fantasy movie. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. What do you want to say?
yeah, no. One, it's a lot funnier than you thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think it was gonna be that fun. The first sequence where they're like at the like prison trial or whatever, and I forgot which guy they're waiting for, but for Jonathan or whatever the guy's name, the
like
burnt guy, and like the way he kept bringing it up, but he brought it up just enough that it was still funny, and then you find out the reason he wanted him because he's a bird and he can fly, so they can escape. Was such a clever like.
They were gonna give him parole anyway.
I know. We were gonna let you out, so the whole plot of the movie could have been avoided. Almost. It's just like, okay, whatever.
But yeah, like I think that scene is a very nice microcosm of just the way the comedy works in this movie. It's like jokes aren't lingered on too much, and they're slipped in a way that's just very, that timed very well specifically. Like when they're at that bridge and the paladin is like giving this very complex, which again is something that happens all the time in D&D. The DM has this like super complicated like sequence of things they want the players to do, and someone's just like, oh, I either messed up or I rolled a nat 20 and just bypassed it completely.
Right. And it's just like it was like I spent 2 hours bidding out this for this. It's like, yeah, we're just not doing that. We just be there. It's like, fine, you guys make it across. Like, I'll just take away all my notes.
Can I take a perception check on the stuff that she was told? Yeah. Hey, look, I found a magic stick that's a portal gun. Like, okay, cool. I guess so.
Oh my gosh, it's like, yeah, but I don't know. It was just a lot of stuff that was just really. It was just like it was a very fun movie just in general, but it also was really fun if you know like the jokes and the references and stuff too. So it's very like it's rewarding regardless, but it's even more rewarding. So, but yeah, I really liked how it was written. I thought the casting was really well done, and there was really good chemistry among the characters.
Oh, yeah.
They really got the band of misfits. And yeah, it was just and the action was actually pretty solid. Like it wasn't a lot, like a lot happens, but I wouldn't say a lot of action per se. But
Mm.
the action they did have was really exciting. It was really cool.
Yeah.
And also the CG was pretty solid too. You know, we got people just transforming into, who know whatever they want to, and it's just like, oh,
Cool.
all right.
I there were probably my two favorite sequences was one where the what is she, druid? Yeah, the druid was like was infiltrating the castle, and the red mage saw her, and she like escaping, and the entire escape sequence is one long shot. Like I love when movies do that, but it just looked so cool following her transforming into various different animals as she finally escaped. And my other favorite sequence was at the graveyard, where they have to revive and they only have 5 questions.
You only get 5 questions,
Like,
and half of those weren't wasted.
okay, how does this work? You asked 5 questions. Wait, dang it. That a question? That was a question. Come on. Why would you say right at the end as if it's a question?
Right. Oh. That was funny.
Mm-hmm.
They just keep using it. Also, I loved how the paladin at the very end, where they're like, "Oh, he's gonna get away," and then you just see him coming along. And it's just like, and it's so funny because he just kind of started in that like later. Last time I saw, he just kind of walks in a direction, and just we don't tell where he's going, and he's just like, "I'll just go where they need me," and he comes, and the music gets all bit. It's so funny because it's just like you half knew it was coming, but it's still so satisfying. We're just like, oh.
But even like when that same scene from earlier with the skeletons, like he seemed trustworthy. I gave it like, but why would you give it to him? Like it just felt like what I was supposed to do. I don't know. It's very charming. It worked out.
It's such a no. It is really a fun movie. Like it's one of those movies that you can kind of. I think anyone could enjoy that movie.
Oh yeah.
It's just a fun movie. There's not a lot of explaining. It's just you just kind of go for it. It's very basic. It's as simple as a basic fantasy movie and as like complex and enjoyable as it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
But
to kind of piggyback off the discussion we had earlier, there wasn't a moment where Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine was actually a thing. Like
right.
They easily could have done a thing where he got over his dead wife by getting with her, but no, that's not what happened.
They didn't.
They're just
even
friends.
and even though she was kind of almost like an aunt mom figure to his daughter too.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. Well, she had that thing with the dwarf or whatever, but then the dwarf moved on too, so they could have also pushed that.
Yeah.
Which that was so funny.
Yes.
That was so unexpected. I was just like, oh. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but no, like I agree. Like kind of like you said, like they don't like. I feel like Hollywood is kind of getting away from it, like forcing the romance tropes of the two main characters just because they're the two main characters. Because it's like, especially when it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Like if it's like a romance movie or something, sure, we know it's coming. But if it's not, and it's just like, yeah, why not? Both of these people are attractive actors. Let's just make them kiss. Like,
Like if it fits the story, sure, but it wasn't necessary. So, yeah. I think. Yeah, it's just a very creative, very well acted, just fun movie. It's free on Amazon Prime if you have that. Which at this point I feel like everyone has it, if not for the free shipping, for all the shows on it.
Better get it by November. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're into The Boys, there's a spin-off series coming this month for that. So.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. I think you haven't really watched much of that, have you?
I've not. I got traumatized. This is the first episode.
No, that's fine. It doesn't get better.
That's what I was saying. It's pretty gruesome from the jump.
Like at least Invincible is animated, so you don't. It's not as gory technically. It's not real gore.
Yeah, I'm used to animated gore pretty bad. I don't know. Yeah. For some reason, when it's live action, it just messes with me different.
No, that's fair. Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta get over it though, because I like everything with superheroes. I've learned, so I'm like,
mm,
eh.
yeah. Um, but yeah, that's two movies that came out this year that both went kind of underappreciated at the box office. That I hope either get sequels or the studios like allow at least those directors to make more stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, because the directors that made uh, D&D, they also made this very fun comedy with Rachel McAdams and Jason. Oh no, I forgot his name. The guy from Arrested Development.
Oh,
Jason? Is it Jason? Oh dear. Oh
oh,
no.
internet, don't fail me now.
Oh dear. The movie's called Game Night. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, Jason Bateman, yeah.
Bateman. That's it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's
yeah, yeah.
Statham. Like that's clearly not him, but
It's
it's
definitely
like
not it, but like that's the only one you could think
yeah.
of. But no, no, that movie's hilarious.
Yes.
First of all,
Yes.
no, that's a great like that's no like that's another one of those movies I think was just kind of underappreciated
Mm-hmm.
because it's kind of just like people like it's one of those movies that like it happened but nobody really talks about.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Ozark, duh. That's why I know him from. I was like, I
Oh,
know him from
right.
something
Okay.
else.
Um, but yeah, like both those movies, I think are they're both like at the, in my opinion, like at the top of their individual fields, like full on actual comedy and action adventure comedy, I guess. That literally, I might be ride or die for anything those directors do. Like they're a pair, like the Russo brothers. Like anything they do, I'm for. Like if they're attached to
Hmm.
it, I'm for. Like, they are very good at what they do. The stuff they make is very solid, very funny. And I hope, even though both movies didn't do super well, I hope they did well enough. I hope just general, you know, uh, just audience reception will let studios let them make more stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's definitely D&D definitely has a higher chance of being like a sequel just because it doesn't really have any reason not to be. Whereas, yeah, I don't just because of DC and how things are going. I don't know about Blue Beetle, although it doesn't. That doesn't mean it doesn't deserve by any means. But like this
Oh
has
yeah.
taught us that how much money, like, and like we've said, money made at the box office does not equal quality of movie at all.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean every movie that hasn't made money was good, but a lot of movies that have made a lot of money have not deserved it, and vice versa.
Right.
So,
Right. Like the new Fast and Furious is the fifth highest grossing movie of this year. Get everybody that saw it was just like, it's not great.
I forgot that even happened.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
think anyone I know saw that movie, to be honest. It has this cult following, though, somehow.
Yeah. I think after nine, people are starting to get tired of the franchise because I feel like they've reached a point where the stuff they do has stopped feeling ridiculous. But that's kind of the only thing that they can market these movies as being, because seven, they're skydiving with cars. Eight, Dwayne Johnson literally picks up a rocket and like throws it, like, like, and then with nine, like these people by that point, oh, they went to space, and every character are literally have superpowers pretty much. Um, and then when Fast 10 came around, the trailers were just like, oh, it's more of this, but now with Jason Momoa. It's like, okay, like what else is new? But not really. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
just
mean, they're just adding every like super buff. I'm shocked like Terry Crews isn't in it by now, but like
right.
every like buff person in Hollywood is just in it because they're just like, we're gonna add The Rock, we're gonna add Jason Moore, we're gonna add John Cena, we're gonna add like you know what I mean. It's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like who's really left, and it's like it's not about racing anymore. It kind of stopped being about cars like 5 movies ago. So that's kind of why we're just like so
Yeah.
at some point it became the Expendables
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's told them yet. So
Right.
they're just kind of just
And,
doing
and
their
now
thing.
there's new Expendables coming out soon. and I don't really hear people talking about it. So I
No,
don't know.
nah. Hey.
Yeah.
I mean, they. I mean, say what you will, the movies still make money. So
Yeah.
like, at the end of the day, because I think there was, I think there was an interview or a podcast or something where Ludacris was on it. He was like, everyone's like, oh, why do you keep making them? He's like, they still make money. He's like, I don't care if it's corny, man. He's like, we
Yeah.
make a billion. He's like, we made $1 billion again. Like,
Yeah. It
I
didn't.
don't,
The
you
last two
know,
haven't quite made $1 billion, but I think this one made like 750, which is
yeah,
probably not as much as they were hoping with the with budgets of movies ballooning these days.
yeah,
But like,
but
still,
still, I
fifth highest
mean,
grossing movie this year so far. So it's pretty
right?
good.
Kind of just, it's like, I mean, hey, like, it's if it's that successful, I mean, do you really need a reason to keep doing it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, at least Blue Beetle. I hope James Gunn likes the movie enough to consider it for, at least the character to move on to the future stuff. Um, Moving on to Disney stuff. Uh, there's been a couple of announcements regarding some upcoming Disney Plus shows. That Echo show that was supposed to be dropped every episode dropping late November, that's actually been delayed to January.
Ooh,
Not there's no real like explanation as to why, but yeah, from November to January, 2 months delay seems a little weird. Maybe they're because there's other stuff Marvel happening in November, they just want to kind of space it out a bit. Um, but it could also just be they need more time to market the movie properly because having a show based, sorry, market the show, having a show based on a side character that no one really knew before they were in Hawkeye, that might be a hard sell.
yeah. Especially like, it a character nobody, like it's again not like this was a huge character to begin with, and also just kind of like, I mean, if it wasn't her show, like if it was like, Daredevil or Kingpin or something, and then like she reappeared, sure,
Sure.
but the fact that she's the focus kind of makes it a little like, okay, because even me, like, I'm not like I will probably watch it, but I'm not like ooh, yay, Echo's coming out, or oh no, Echo got delayed. I'm kind of like, oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm going to watch it because I've watched every other Marvel thing, but it's not like even though it's been delayed into next year, I don't know if it's going to crack my top 10 favorite, most anticipated things of next year. So I don't know. We'll see. Um, Another reason it maybe got delayed is because what if season 2 was actually moved up to releasing this winter, so probably December.
Mm-mm.
So I don't know if that's going to be a weekly thing like it was last time, but um, I wouldn't be surprised if those two basically essentially swapped places. Like it might, what if might release late November instead of Echo. But if it's as good or better than the first season, you know, it might be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first one had a couple of episodes that I wasn't like super hot on, but overall, I enjoyed it.
That's fair.
Yeah. X-Men 97 is
Oh
apparently
yeah.
releasing early next year.
Okay. Yeah, I 100% forgot they were remaking. We were bringing that back.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's all.
Um, I don't know. I feel like this show specifically has the highest potential to be bad relative to our expectations.
Mm.
Because it is the sequel series to a show everyone grew up loving. The characters obviously they won't sound quite the same because all the actors are older. The art style is not going to look exactly like the original show. It might even have a completely different art style. There's some rumors it'll be more like a more in the 3D style that What If is in. I don't know if I believe that. The concept art seems relatively the same as the original show,
Yeah, it's,
but but
yeah, I think
yeah,
it's possible.
but yeah, probably I'm gonna guess around March next year when that's coming. So, you know, I'm gonna watch it. um, and one more Disney Plus show I have here, the Agatha show
Mm.
has been, I guess, technically delayed. It was never given a hard release date, but it was a thing where it's like it's probably getting pushed out of this year, and it obviously has been released next fall, hopefully October, because
That makes sense.
that makes
Yeah.
sense, and has been renamed once again to Agatha Darkhold Diaries.
Okay.
It was at one point Coven of Chaos, and then
Mm.
sorry, it was once House of Harkness, then the Coven of Chaos. Now it's the Darkhold Diaries. So,
I mean, they're clear. I mean, do you think these names mean they're completely rewriting the script each time?
not completely. I wouldn't be surprised if the focus of certain things are changing. Like, essentially, I imagine with it being called Darkhold Diaries, I imagine we're gonna be seeing a lot more of like prequel stuff, like showing how she acquired the Darkhold, how she
Mm.
rose to power and within the circle of witches and stuff, like using the Darkhold to her advantage throughout history. I think we're gonna see some stuff with her uh, after whatever happened after WandaVision, but I think, especially since the Darkhold is now destroyed, I'm pretty sure WandaVision or in
Doctor
Multiverse of
Strange.
Madness, I'm pretty sure
Mm.
Wanda destroyed it in every universe somehow. Um, that's how it was
But
described.
like, can you even do that
I don't
though?
think so.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe she just thinks she did. I
Yeah,
don't. Mm.
but but regardless, I obviously really liked Agatha's character. I like
Oh yeah.
Aubrey Plaza and a lot of the other actors that are rumored to be in this
Mm-hmm.
show. Um,
This does feel like Aubrey Plaza kind of thing to just
yeah,
show up in.
yeah. It being renamed now for a third time is a little concerning,
Red
mostly because
flag.
I liked House of Harkness the best personally, but
Yeah,
Coven of Chaos wasn't bad, and I'll probably grow on this one too. But I like the alliteration for all three. At least they're keeping
yes, I
that.
think. Yeah, I mean that's always good with like a title name or something, just to
Mm,
like make it more roll off the tongue.
yeah. But give it all the time it needs. It'll be 3 years after 3.5 years after WandaVision, so like hopefully people still remember this character exists by the time it comes out.
I mean,
Um,
they will. It's Catherine Hahn. We're not gonna forget,
they
but
should, yeah.
still.
I'm still waiting on a Midnight Suns thing to happen. We have Moon Knight. We could have a Ghost Rider. We have Elsa Bloodstone and Man Thing. Like, there's uh, that Blade, obviously, and that guy from the end of Eternals, the Black Knight. Like, we have
Oh
characters that
yeah.
easily could form,
Yeah,
uh,
I actually forgot about
right?
him.
Like, Agatha could also be part of that. Like,
Hmm.
you know, it feels like something that the MCU was gunning towards, and then just kind of
Eh.
stops doing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they kind of realize like maybe we should refocus. I don't know, because like it does seem like they're doing a lot of things. It's like you're putting down three foundations and not building a single house right now.
This is true. Like, if anything, I kind of wish they had just like. I know the idea was they were afraid that if they don't make it bigger for the next phase, then they would lose audience. But I almost kind of feel like trying to make it bigger did kind of make people lose
Hmm.
interest faster than they were expecting because people just aren't loving the multiverse stuff. Like, The way they introduced Kang was I thought interesting, but then Quantumania kind of let like dead into that a little bit. Like there is still potential for Kang to be a big deal, but like
Yeah.
I don't know, just the way they're doing this, I'm not loving. But while they're doing
Yeah.
multiverse stuff, they're also trying to build out these other little corners. It does seem a
Yeah.
little confused, and there's
And like
stuff, yeah,
cutting corners from other things that could have been bigger, and it's kind of like, okay, what are we like? It's so unfocused right now. Like I can't tell anybody what the focus of the MCU is right now. It's like
right,
it's
like it,
kind of the Kang Dynasty, but also kind of not.
right.
But like, if it's not the Kang Dynasty, what is it? I'm not really sure. Like, it just we're kind of just doing things,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually, maybe it'll all come together, but like probably not.
Yeah, like like I said, I'm still here for any Marvel stuff. Like obviously, I'm gonna see the Marvels. I'm gonna watch What If Loki, which is coming out soon. Actually, next month is
Mm-hmm.
Loki. So
Woo!
yeah, yeah. All the trailers and teasers and stuff for that have been looking very very solid. Um, I just hope if Loki is as good as the first season, if the Marvels is at least as good as the first movie, hopefully they can keep that momentum for other stuff. Because especially with the writer's strike happening, if Deadpool or Captain America get delayed, I just have a feeling, you know, I don't know what they're gonna do if people completely lose interest by the time Deadpool 3 comes out. You know, it might be rough for them. So we'll see.
Yeah, but I think overall, I think it can work as long as we kind of like. I don't want to say refocus, 'cause that's too general, but like with the things we are making sure they stand alone well all by themselves along with that. Because the thing is, I feel like the reason people are kind of complaining is because things on an individual level aren't being that great.
Mm,
Because a lot of the original, a lot of the OG MCU movies, a lot of them don't really seem to be going anywhere outside of their own movie.
right.
But when they're done well, you don't really ask questions. It's when they're not done well where you're like, okay, well, what was the point of that? Did we just waste a movie? Like, what's going on? And I didn't learn anything,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't get this. And it's like, so, which I kind of get,
Mm-hmm.
but like,
I also think a part of the strength of at least the first two phases was essentially not every movie was necessarily trying to like lay down hints and foreshadowing things for future stuff. That wasn't like the point of those movies. At least not really. It's just essentially if something mattered, it's more like, oh, that's something cool from a previous movie that ended up mattering. Whereas now, because we're at the point where almost every single MCU thing is like, oh, essentially you have to finish this part of it in a future thing. When things aren't followed up on, it feels like a bigger deal. Like there's still Tiamat just sticking out of the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean, and like people are still wondering why has that not been brought up in future stuff.
and it's
Like,
like that's the thing. It's like it's one thing if something happens in the middle of nowhere or on a distant planet, but when you make these like kind of like you said with like Blue Beetle, when you have these world universe altering stakes,
mm-hmm.
and then it's not completely tied up and there's loose ends still,
Yep,
you can't just sit on that. Like we're like, if this world's supposed to be so connected, everyone saw that.
yeah,
Like, what's going on? Like, you telling me Nick Fury doesn't care? Like,
he's been up in
what's the deal
space.
here? But like, he came back. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
even if he came back, it's like, bro, like, hey man, I know the scroll thing's crazy, but there's also that going on.
yeah,
If you want, if you have a minute.
yeah. That's a good point.
But just details.
Yeah.
Also, wait, also the Captain Marvel thing from Ms. Marvel, like where she just kind of shows up in a room. I
Mm-hmm.
know we have the Marvels coming, but it's like, how long in between this is this happening? Is that gonna like? I mean, has she just been there? I mean, I assume that just is the start of the movie, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, I I imagine it'll just be like that after credit scene probably took place like at least a couple weeks or a month or so after the
Hmm.
regular, the show, um, which the MCU has done stuff like that before, uh, where like the after credit scene is essentially like a clip or like something that's going to be a part of a future movie. So
Hmm.
that's what that was, I guess. Um, but
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
good point. Yeah, that was a bad argument on my part, but it's still.
Um, but anyway, Loki is looking good, so hopefully
Yeah,
that stays good.
yeah. Hopefully yeah. I think so. Which again, now that we're getting some more, more of that. That was done well. They, what they kind of have an idea of where they want to go with this, and I feel like they have the least to worry about continuity wise because they're kind of just, in not limbo, but like you kind of just do whatever you want.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Um, yeah. Is there anything else you want to bring up or discuss before we sign off?
not particularly. No, just I mean we're getting things. We're moving through the year. We're already in September. I mean we're almost done.
Yes, we are. Yeah, and a lot of stuff I was excited for has already come out. Pretty much everything I was excited for has already come out. Most of
Look at
it's
the
been,
list.
you know, most of it's been as good or better than I was hoping. Some stuff has come out and surprised me, like that Ninja Turtles movie. I know you haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen it. Have you seen that?
And I almost
Okay,
did. I didn't.
that's
I
fine.
haven't seen it yet.
If you could somehow watch that movie, it's on digital now, but you know, or if you want to, pay for it digital or wait for it to come to streaming somewhere you have, watch
Mm,
it. Watch it somehow on the biggest screen you can because that is a phenomenal movie that was not on my radar
okay.
until like a week before it came out. My brother was like, "Hey, are we seeing that?" Like, you mentioned it a while ago. I was like, I did mention that, yeah. Or at least we saw a trailer for it. I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't mind seeing that. And then we for the
Then
moment
there
we
it
saw that, and
is.
it's very, very good. Blue Beetle again blew me away in a way I wasn't expecting from a Blue Beetle or a DC thing this year, especially. Um,
Yeah. All that's really left this year is the Marvels, I
Invincible,
guess.
Invincible,
Invincible. Well, yeah,
the
Invincible
first
is
the
like,
first half because the second half is you have to wait a couple of months for
oh,
that.
that's right. They're gonna do. Oh, no,
Yeah,
not again.
yeah, but
Oh,
it's
the
not as
pain.
long of a wait. I'm sure the first four episodes they say is gonna have something big that'll be satisfying enough, but yeah, and then Dune got delayed, so that's
Yeah,
fun.
that's sad.
The next March.
It's fine. Everything's
It's
fine.
fine. It's fine. Again, it's just like when Tears of the Kingdom got delayed. I'm fine waiting for peace. It's
Right?
fine. It's gonna be good.
Dude, that game is so awesome.
Yes, I'm very close to the end. I'm I'm almost done with Gerudo stuff, and then I'll be
That's one of
yeah
Did you? Is that the last place you went to?
yeah
Me too.
yeah
I'm still. I just got there.
yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, the desert was just more intimidating than other stuff, and I
Yeah.
just yeah it's
Well, yeah. I was like, oh yeah, I'm not worried about the desert. And then I'm like, oh, they have zombies. And I'm like,
yeah.
well, this got harder. I'm
You
like,
know how to take
cool.
them out easy, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, no.
Like the
I mean,
shock fruit
I
or
did
dazzle fruit
before.
or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, fire or electric. I mean, they're
Mm,
they're easy. They don't move very fast. But it was more of seeing said zombie was like, well, dang, okay then.
mm,
Like,
yeah. The first one I encountered was in this cave, and it was very well. Because this game is so good about doing this kind of thing. Where like, the first one I saw was like in a group of three, and like they were coming at me, and then a yellow chew jelly like or chew like
mm,
popped out of the ground. So I shot it, and it zapped them, and they got into a weakened state, so I killed them easily. It was like, oh, that's to
nice.
teach you that they
They have
die
a
to
weakness.
the
Yeah.
lightning weapons. Like that's cool. Um, so yeah, this game is good. It's very good.
It's great. It's such a good game. It's such
Uh,
a. Have you been to Terrytown yet?
yes, yeah, I like have my own
Okay,
little house. That's
dude, it's so cool.
yes.
I'm sorry, but
No,
like, it's so you can just make your like. I remember because in the last game it was like you can like add to your house, but it
mm,
wasn't really your house, and I was like, yeah, that's
right.
okay. You can make your own house. You can
Uh,
put your own pictures in it. It's so cool. Like
my,
I have a problem. I have put too much money into my house.
my
That's all
house
I spend money on it
is
for.
very pathetic. It's essentially just a storage unit like a glorified like ring of storage. I have the three weapon, three shield, three bow
Mm-hmm.
stash, and that's all I have. Like there's no there's
Oh,
no living room.
you don't have a kitchen at
there's a
least?
bedroom and a praying shrine. Other than that, just weapons.
Oh, dude, I would literally live in my house for
I
real.
don't
It's
need it
awesome.
for anything else. I don't go there out like I don't live
I
there,
just
but
like having it. It just makes the game feel more real because like I've
yeah.
got like everything,
It doesn't
like
have a roof.
stable.
It's just a ring of
Does it
stuff.
have a room? Oh
No.
nah. I've got two. It's like this, 2 stories. I've got kitchen over here. You know
Yeah.
this here. Pictures on the wall I'm
Mm.
taking. I'm like, I want to give a tour
See,
of my house to people. Like, I love
see,
this place.
I don't take pictures. outside of
Not
the
even
pictures
in the game.
outside of the pictures for like a couple of side quests, I don't do that
Oh my!
stuff.
Now
No.
I took this awesome picture of the Mifa statue in Zora
Uh,
domain and put that in my living room, and
that's
I'm just
cool.
like,
Yeah.
it's so cool. I'm just like, the fact you can customize it is just like the coolest thing ever.
Yep.
Like, it's not The Sims, but like it's like customizable Sims esque almost. I'm like,
Mm.
this is like they really did everything, and we're like, you know what? Let's just make it a little bit better with everything, and
Yes.
they did, and I love it, and
Mm.
it makes me
Yeah.
happy, and I'm gonna play it after this is over.
Yeah. like my brother is at a point where he's essentially he's at a point where he's done almost everything you can do in the game except by fighting Ganon. And he told me last night where it's like I'm kind of scared to fight him because after I beat Ganon, I think I'm done playing this game. He's like, I
Mm-hmm.
almost wish there was more to do because even though he's put over 160 hours into this game, he's done
Sheesh.
almost every side quest, all the great fairies, all of his armor is upgraded. Like, he's had a lot of fun doing it. But after he beats the game, there's no reason to go back, and that's
Yeah. No, here's
real
what you
sad.
do: you finish it, wait a couple months, DLC comes out, you get DLC, and you jump back in like
Yeah,
nothing happened.
yeah. Probably at the Game Awards or either the next Nintendo Direct, which should be sometime this month, or the Game Awards, they'll announce some
Yeah,
expansion. So that's yeah.
which like because they already have a bunch of the DLC stuff already from the last game included in this
Yeah.
game, which is cool. And I was just like, they are
That
it was so
that
dope.
that
Which like
island was really fun. Having like see the like
yes,
towers of pirates. Yeah.
mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying, dude.
Mm.
It's just like cool. I already like yeah. I always like when you find stuff that the game thought you were gonna find way earlier, and
Mm.
they're like, you need to have this me and this.
Uh
And
huh.
also 30 of these. I'm just like, yeah, I've got like 100 of
there was
these.
one side quest. I went to it was a stable and I talked to a lady. She was like I'm on the search for the strongest weapon there is. I've heard that if you fuse Lionel horns with stuff, it turns into a very strong weapon. Like I would love to see one of those. There's a Lionel off to the east there. If you go kill one of those and show me its horn, I'll give you something. And I was like, actually, I had killed there was a like an enemy camp on the way that had a Lionel blade in there. I was like, oh, you mean this? I was like, I'm not fighting a Lionel just to do this. Like, yeah, here it is. Like,
It's like,
oh.
or like you kill something on the way, or just like, I can't believe those pirates in my village.
uh,
Oh my gosh, you killed the
yeah.
pirates. It's like, I mean, they were on the way. I mean, I
Yeah.
just, I saw a problem and I
my,
fixed it.
my
Like,
favorite is when
that's what I do.
there has been at least twice where I clear out enemy camp. I like throw myself against a wall several times fighting like a bunch of like white tier enemies, like clearly no
Mhm.
business being here yet. But I
Right.
eventually kill them all just systematically throwing bombs and doing whatever, and then like got a bunch of cool stuff out of the chest there. As I'm walking back, those like band of like people that you are supposed to fight hordes of enemies with, they're
Hmm.
walking towards me. It's like, oh, they were supposed to help me do that. It's like,
Yes.
well, already did it, so give me
No.
my reward.
Yes. No. There was one where you had to like use Ultra Hand to fix the bridge and let them come
Yeah.
across, and I was just like, "Nah, I got this." across. It just came across,
Uh-huh.
and they were like, "Oh my, yours amazing!" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I know."
That was the first one I did, so I did let them help me, but like,
Yeah. I don't know. It's just I just like how it has different like outcomes for how you handle it. Because like I like to just be that guy and just because they're like you are legendary. I'm like I am pretty
oh yeah,
legendary, aren't I?
yeah, that like that's kind of why I'm afraid of them ever even thinking about making a Zelda movie, because how the heck do you show Link in a movie? Because
Mm.
like unless you make him like on a John Wick level, like everyone is terrified, like his name is just the legend across the land, and just when he shows up, like, oh, you're dead, like he's a monster. Like I don't know if you do that, but I don't think Nintendo would allow them to do that. Like I don't know. Like
I mean, I feel like you could, especially if they do kind of like a you are this guy, but you've been depowered for whatever real
yeah,
plot reason it could work. But like,
yeah,
I mean, I think we could. Yeah, I thought a movie would just be kind of hard though, just because like, a just like not talking the movie.
right.
So it's like that's gonna be a lot going in because you would have to like it would force a companion of some type, whether it's like oh gosh, what's the fairy's name
Navi.
from the yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Navi or somebody is always gonna have to be next to you the whole time,
Yeah.
or there's just not gonna be any,
Or they
you
have
know.
to just double down and pick a voice, which they could do. Like Link does, clearly does talk to the
Right.
NPCs, but you don't hear him talk.
Right. Which I kinda like. I
Mm-hmm.
kinda like I'd rather him just be like a not like he just emotes aggressively a lot
Yeah,
character.
and in a way that's kind of similar to John Wick, because apparently in John Wick 4 he only has 38 lines for the whole movie. He's the main character. He doesn't talk a lot, and that's fine. He doesn't need to.
Yeah. To be fair, that movie's not really the that's not a dialogue heavy movie,
No,
but
it's not.
38 is like because that's a long
And
movie.
most of those lines are him going, "Yeah," and that's it. That's all he says.
Yeah, I need a gun. Like,
Yeah.
like there's not a lot of like
uh,
words. Those have been wow, that's crazy.
yeah.
38 lines in a 2.5 hour movie that you're the main
Almost four,
character.
almost 3 hours. It's 2 hours
That's what I'm
50.
saying.
Yeah.
Ugh. And it was awesome. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. Like that's pretty great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I, I'm also at the point where yeah, like I, very close to the end, but I don't want it to end, but it kind of
Mhm.
will. Like,
It's like take your time, but also like do all the side quests, do a lot of like yeah. I think your brother has the right idea. Before you beat Ganon, kind of just do as much else you can do, and then use it as the cap off because
mm,
like the motivation to do things after beating Ganon probably isn't too high.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do it eventually.
Yeah, yeah, eventually, yeah. I mean, somebody's got to save Hyrule,
Mhm.
right? Like again,
I will
but
say I think the fact that I think the story of this game I think is overall better than the last game, which basically didn't have one. But I
no,
think, ironically, the fact that Ganon is just kind of there, like Ganondorf is just there
yeah,
somewhere in a pit somewhere, just biding his time for you to come find him, I guess. As opposed to in the first game, it's way more believable because Zelda is actively keeping him captive in Hyrule Castle.
mhm,
So it's almost like in this game, why isn't he just ransacking villages? Like you taking your time feels worse because, but at the same time, the game isn't like punishing you, even though it should. Like Ganondorf is doing something. Like why isn't he? Why hasn't he taken over all of Hyrule since he's back? Zelda's gone. More or less. Like why? It's a little weird. Like
yeah. It's like for the game's sake. It makes sense in terms of you don't want to rush the player, but it's like yeah, as far as like a in universe perspective, it's like do I really have time to go around and hand people already what is it? What are they doing in them? the Hetano village with the mayor election,
Right.
like mushrooms or whatever.
Yeah,
Do I have
I haven't done
time?
that yet, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's like, do I have time to do this? Do I really have time for
Like,
like all this stuff I'm doing? But like, I'm totally gonna do anyway.
mm-hmm.
But I don't know. But I
Yeah.
will say, I mean, yeah, that part. I think the part where you just can't just kind of just like last game, just walk to Ganon at any point. Like
Mm.
that's definitely maybe a setback. But everything else just so the landscapes are really good. The like how in depth each individual like regional dungeon is
Yeah.
unreal.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like they're vast. Like it takes a long time to get through them. Like you don't just like you could just run through the original one. This one you have to like crawl and try and dive and this and oh my and then oh my god, it's a giant frog. Like you know what I mean?
Right.
Like just you know how scary that was to just walk. I don't know how much of the depths you've seen.
Oh yeah.
There are just random, just like kaijus just walking around.
Mm-hmm.
It is not like I thought I was joking out that that's
No,
real. Okay.
There's a big yeah, big frog that like yeah. I will say it's kind of funny just how kind of a little scary honestly just how easy Gleeoks have gotten for me to fight. like like I just ran up on the one in the Coliseum. Like I was just going somewhere. I was like, oh, the Coliseum. Let me just kill the lightning Gleeok in there.
Casually.
Just casually, just put a couple of key eyes on. Bam, bam, bam.
Right.
Bam. 3 rounds got him. Like easy. Yeah. Didn't take any damage.
Didn't take any damage. That's impressive.
Especially now that I have a pretty big selection of the Lionel bows that shoot 3, and each one is the max damage. So just
right.
Like just kill them.
Just like bye.
Yeah. So, but Lionels are still kind of difficult, but yeah.
See, Lionel's the ones I had the least pro because I actually know how they fight. The other ones I'm still like learning.
For some reason, my mind cannot wrap my head around the whole like flurry rush technique. I just cannot time that right. I'm pretty good with timing in other games. For some reason, just the flurry rush, I just can't time that right with fighting Lionel specifically.
Interesting.
Yeah. But still, it's still a lot of fun fighting them, like finding other ways to do it. But just I know the correct way, I just can't do.
Yeah, there's more. There's like 10 ways to do it because like I focus. I like shoot them in the face and then they fall and then you go on their back and just go ham. And
right.
Like that's what I've always done. So like. There's no real wrong way to do it except for dying. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's such a fun game. Have you combined a Keith's eyeballs to a weapon before?
No.
But if you throw it, would it automatically hit it?
That's a great question.
Fun to go grab my Switch and find out because I just had that idea. What I was thinking, I was like, if I just like took like any kind of like spear or something, like a throwing spear or something, and just put a Keith's eyeball on it and just
throw it.
I
feel like
it would, right?
It should,
right?
Especially a throwing spear specifically, it should.
Right. Like maybe not just a stick, but like if it's actually like a throwing spear or like one of those like was it Halgren or whatever?
Yeah, or a boomerang, it should.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like right.
Huh.
Well, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. We'll report back. Yeah.
I will report back and see how that works because that's one of those I haven't thought. Like this is why I like this game because like there's so many ideas and combinations you can just kind of think of. It's like what happens if I add this here? But what if I put it here? Or just throw it.
Yeah.
I forgot you could just throw stuff and
right.
like it's fun because it like I don't know, it just the fact that I can just throw bombs at you makes me feel better than like,
don't have to waste an arrow, just throw it.
Right. I can just especially if they're like at an angle where like I have to account for like the drop off of the arrow and all that. I'm like I'd rather just throw it honestly.
I still do miss like shock and bomb arrows.
Yes, specifically,
but like bomb flowers are numerous enough. Shock fruit, fire fruit, they're numerous enough where you don't really like. It's not a big deal, but I miss bomb.
And like, I miss the bomb arrows specifically, but the other ones not really because there's multiple things
Mm.
that can make a fire or icer, because like you've got the fruits, you've also got the like choo choo jellies, and there's like other
Like
stuff
lightning
too.
keys wings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So like there's a lot of options for that, so it
Yeah.
makes it. But like the bomb ones, I feel like isn't it just the bomb flowers?
Yes. The rubies also explode bigger, actually, but
Ah. Well, I know rubies make like weapons for elements and
yeah,
like.
they also work as like a giant explosion.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
I'm gonna
first time
try
I killed
that.
a Lionel, I actually like jumped off a like a tall rock that was near it, had a bow that shot three, and
Ooh.
attached a ruby to it, and like in slow mo Matrix time, like shot multiple ruby arrows at it. The game almost crashed. It was very, it was like going down to a chug, and then I had like this little sliver left that came in and just killed it.
So awesome. Such a fun game.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like definitely still my game of the year. Granted, I haven't really
Yeah.
played many
Oh, yeah.
games since, but but yeah, it's good. It's
Yeah.
good.
I mean, the last one was, walk was out of the park, and this one's better than that one. So
Mm,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Okay. Anything else?
that's all I got.
All right. So with that, we will see you all next time.
Take care, everybody.